Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. That intro video done for us by our friends at Homefield with that kick-ass voice at the beginning. I'd like to make up a story that was my gravelly voice after a night out drinking. That's not the case. It's just an announcer who's doing a great job. We could all use a night of drinking, maybe, after what we just witnessed here by the Winnipeg Jets. Boy, oh boy, the bat signal was in the sky. The coach sent it up there asking for his players to respond. I didn't see it. Apparently their head coach did see it. We will get into that because there is an enormous seismic shift in tone by their head coach from what we've seen from the beginning of the year. But listen, I know that people are feeling like they're punched in the gut right now. I know Jets fans, some of them are angry, some of them are sad. Some of them are in withdrawal. Some of them have resigned and thrown their hands up in the air. We all need a little bit of, something to pick things up. So I'm going to do this early. Let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Before we start anything, let's just get at it and give ourselves something to smile about as we head into a show that is going to be pulling no punches. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you something, everybody. If there was ever any doubt how much Renny loves all of you out there and the contributions that you make to our show, I was having a heck of a hair day, and I put this on, ruining that. The potential, how intricate a detail it is to try and get this thing over the mop of hair and try and keep it intact. I tried. I don't think I quite succeeded, but that's how much Renny loves you all. He's willing to take one for the team in this case, because we know this is going to be a little bit of a tough one. I did like some of the comments that we're seeing here. Roy Mack had said he's going to need an 8-pack of Lamplighter after that. I think we all do. If you have your Lampies at home, crack them open. Let's get into it. What I think about this, I think that this is the low point of the Jets season. I don't think that you can say anything other than that. I mean, here we have the Winnipeg Jets, and Terry Trey says it here. We're going to get into how the coach responded to this, but here we have a team called out by their head coach, demanding a response, basically setting up language. It's borderline brinksmanship is what I've seen from the head coach here, saying to his players that we need to see what they're made of in this situation. And what I saw, especially in that first period, I saw a no-show. I saw a coach saying, you guys need to go out there right now in this moment and show me what you're made of. And I didn't see a response. And this is where things get so tricky. If you're a head coach, you basically put a spotlight on your team and told the world, we are going to find out in this next game what this team is made of. And that's their response. I don't know that there was any way other than to come out the way that Rick Bowness did after this game and try and soft pedal that and say that was a good response. I was baffled by his press conference afterwards, but we will dig into that in just a little bit. But we just have to get into what we saw out there. Outshot 12-1 in that first period. I don't know what to say about a response like that, other than maybe people shouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've seen this time and time again from the Winnipeg Jets. We talked about on this show time and time again. We've said that it's a problem, and so often we have people, massive segments of the Jets community, of the fan community, that never thought that this kind of stuff was a problem. That thought that it's negative to talk about it, to say that, yeah, so the Jets got outshot 12-3 and they came out of that period 2-0. thinking that that's a good thing. I mean, I'm wondering, all the people who were calling me a negative Nancy or whatever you were calling me in that victory they had just the other day or last week against the Rangers. I guess that's almost a week ago now. All the people who were telling me that that was a good win and that's a legitimate win, and the Rangers didn't really get very many good shots against the Jets, and that is, a pathway to success. Do people honestly still think that now? Do people not look at that game and say what happened in that game is exactly what happened in this game, is exactly what happened in the last game against the Islanders, is exactly what happened against the Colorado Avalanche the other night, and say that that was the exception, that the reason the Jets came away with 2 points is because a goaltender went out and stole that? This is a team right now that I look at based on that response that we saw, based on the last game. I mean, let's not all just put it on tonight. It's not like there's an aha light bulb moment and something happened here that we didn't know about this team. This has been happening for a long time. We've talked about this since mid-January. This team is now 3 games below 500. If you just want to back things up and go through what they've done recently, well, they've lost now 3 straight games that they, really weren't able to manufacture much offensively. The game before that, their goaltender steals them a game. The game before that, they lose to a team that was the worst team in the league. The game before that, they come back in the third period to beat a Seattle team that is now in a wild card spot along with them in overtime. The game before that, they pump the Chicago Blackhawks, one of the worst teams in the league. The game before that, again, a team that is trending in the wrong direction. They have a miracle come from behind victory against the St. Louis Blues. And the 3 games before that, they lose all 3 of those games. And this isn't a stretch. Like now we're starting to see them playing legitimate teams, but this is all just to say, like, nothing is new here. This is what we're seeing. And I have to say this, I go back, and I'm not going back on this. I said at the beginning of the year, I thought Jets would finish 3rd in their division. There's still time for them to do that. Clearly plenty of time. They just dropped out of that 3rd place position here tonight. But, people like Maul, who talked on this show, said that he believes the Jets are going to miss the playoffs. For the record, I don't think that's going to happen. But the people who have been doomsdaying this for a long time and saying that the Winnipeg Jets are a team ready to collapse, how right do those people look right now? And for all the people, because this basically to me is the faith that has existed in Jets fans for a number of years now, the belief that this team just needs one little thing to turn the switch. The belief that this team at any moment is about to flip the switch. The belief that something's wrong in that room and you just got to tweak it and this team is going to be back. I think what has to happen here for Jets fans is to take a look at what's happening right now and say that what we are seeing at this moment, and we've been seeing for the last 6 weeks beyond that, is maybe this is maybe you should be looking and saying this is exactly who this Winnipeg Jets team is. What you're seeing right now, this is the Winnipeg Jets. And this has been the Winnipeg Jets for a long time. You want evidence? All these people who constantly harp on me for being negative and saying things they don't want me to say, the people who just want you to smile and grin and say everything's fine as the house burns around you. 2018, 2019, the Jets were one of the best teams in the league to start the season. The calendar turns to 2019. They absolutely fall apart. Why did everyone still have faith and think that it was a one-off? Well, because they pushed back against the St. Louis Blues, who ended up going on and winning the Cup. And people who want to believe and not look at the issues, who just want to believe in possibility and the good things, looked at that and said, yeah, they lost to the Stanley Cup winners and they almost had them. The Jets were going to win the Stanley Cup. They just ran into the Blues. Forget about that. Okay, so then you move to the next year. The season doesn't end because of COVID, so we move to the year after that. It's the Canadian division year. Everyone remember how long the Winnipeg Jets were duking it out with the Toronto Maple Leafs for first place in that division. Does anyone out of that know where the Winnipeg Jets ended up after spending the majority of the year, the top end of the year, duking it out for first place in the Northern Division, or whatever it was called? Does anyone know where they ended up? Out of 16 teams heading into the playoffs that year, ended up 14th. 14th place out of all those teams going into the playoffs. So again, a year that they were running out of the gates and then fall apart towards the end of the end of the year and stumble and limp into the playoffs. That happens that year. Go to the next year, which is last season. What happens? The Winnipeg Jets have quite simply the best start that they'd ever had in franchise history. What happens to them? They fall off a cliff and they miss the playoffs. Well, what are we seeing right now? The Winnipeg Jets bested last year and now had, again, since they returned, their best start in franchise history. And now we're seeing things fall apart. Everyone who is looking at this and saying that this is the anomaly need to take a look at history, because what we are seeing is history not only repeating itself, but consistently repeating itself. Every year we had a start of a season to an end of the season since the 2018 year where the Jets caught fire and went to the conference finals. We are seeing the exact same thing play out over and over and over again. So when people are surprised by this, they probably shouldn't be, because you've seen this play happen over and over again. People have been pointing it out in the chat room. Again, I'm not saying that this ends in the Jets falling out of the playoffs. We'll dig into that, but 5 points is a lot for the Calgary Flames to make up, especially the way they're playing. You got to think the Jets at some point aren't going to keep losing at this pace. They've won 1 of their last 6 games, I believe. There has to be something better in that than that. But we need to start exploring why this is happening. It's a question we'll have to talk about on this show, why the Jets consistently see themselves tailing off. We have to tackle the idea that they've put themselves in a lot of trouble here. We have to tackle the idea of why teams were able to catch them and move past them in the standings. A lot to get to. I know I've gone on for a long time. I know a lot of you think that I'm hogging the buffet. I was actually just tap dancing a little bit and doing some pretty fine tap dancing, I think, until my main man, Ken Wiebe, got here. And guess what, everybody? You should be excited because he is here. Kenny Wiebe is popped into the room. He's waiting in the green room, looking with astonishment to see that I'm already wearing the headband. Let's bring him into the show to see what he thinks about everything. The man with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. I'm almost wishing we had a camera that showed our reaction. Like I am air drumming to that song every time.
Buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, if Ken had hair down to his shoulders, it would be everywhere. He is headbanging his way through that song every single time. Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Ken, not a lot of great stuff to report on from the Winnipeg Jets tonight in their game here. I have to say, I was absolutely baffled by what we saw, especially in the first period.
Yeah.
A call out like we saw from their head coach in the last game, and that response there just absolutely blew me away. I spent a lot of time talking with Jim from CJOB about this. I don't know that anyone can figure out what we're seeing on the ice. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, first and foremost, excellent job of tap dancing 101. I got a text message a few minutes ago from someone who lives in my household. Quite the Renny rant! ! So excellent work by you. Thank you for tap dancing.
I need to. I can feed. Yeah.
I know, and I'm going to just, before you start yelling at me, I'm going to, we've had a very good talk before the game already, so I knew you'd be ready to roll. So my intensity will be there as well. My intensity was required to write that column that I just filed, and I apologize. I did say I was hoping to be closer to 6:35, but nice work. What am I seeing? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. When a coach tells a team that it's a test of its collective will and pride, and they're outshot 12-1 in the first period, I would call that concern. I would not call that a highly energetic start that was derailed by a penalty. Sorry, that is not the Rick Bowness we have come to know. We've discussed his change in approach quite a bit, and we are in agreement that Rick has come our opinion is Rick is coming to the conclusion that this team needs a serious pat on the back right now because, even we mentioned it the other day, Sean. I mean, the Jets hate talking about past seasons, but you can't ignore the evidence of past seasons when they're going through a tailspin that is so eerily reminiscent of some of the tailspins that you have mentioned previously. I'm not saying that it's doom and gloom and 22 games in a row of this. I don't think. I said this the other day with Hustler on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I think the Jets are better equipped to prevent absolute folding of the tent to occur. But right now, the Jets are really struggling. There's no way around it. I mean, I understand the school of positivity was being preached in the post-game address by Josh Morrissey's a positive guy. Pierre-Luc Dubois looking at some positives. But there was also some truth in there, and that the Jets haven't been good enough and they need to be better. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there's no way around it, and it has to happen for them, or they're soon going to find themselves in a wild card spot to potentially being out of the playoffs. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing a team that is playing with no speed. They're a team that has played fast previously. I don't see the Jets, second wave coming. Josh Morrissey's getting involved, but I don't see the defense providing secondary offense like they had been previously. I don't see what I see is a team that's not confident when they have the puck in high danger areas. We saw that countless times today. Blake Wheeler, glorious chance from the slot, rips it wide, high and wide. You got guys going for perfect shots, and I'm still kind of confused. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers must have felt he was out of real estate. I can't believe he tried to go between the legs there on that opportunity. I mean, he must have thought he was out of room on the backhand side. But I mean, going between the legs in that sort of situation is just a little bit. Again, you all for skilled plays. It just seemed like he raised the degree of difficulty at a time when he didn't have to. And to me, that the only reason for that, Sean, is not that he's not a hot dog. This is a guy who wants to score. He thinks the only way he could score was to do that. So how does the team get that back? That's the thing. I mean, we talked about it with Adam Lowry in New York. I mean, it's great to say I have to do a better job of bearing down when I get scoring chances, but how do you do that while staying loose enough at the same time? I mean, the Jets are passing up far too many opportunities. There's no doubt about that. When they're getting them, they were either blocked or wide, and that's, again, when you're not confident in those areas, those are the things that happen. I mean, but solving them, it's easy for me and you to say this is how you solve it. But, I mean, when you're on the ice at 100 miles an hour, it's tough to solve. So how are they going to solve it? I have no idea. But what I do know is that they're going to try to solve it. Nino Niederreiter, we'll get into him in a while. I mean, he's going to help their team. But, man, you and I have been debating what Kevin Cheveldayoff will do. And, I mean, how could you not want to be a fly on the wall in that office? I mean,
oh, my goodness.
Honestly, what must you be thinking at this point? I mean, we talked about it the other day. I mean, don't you almost, this will sound absurd, but don't you almost have to consider a trade involving a core piece right now, the way they're playing? Or I know you've changed to sort of more of the stand pat variety, and again, and I'm not saying the Jets should panic and trade about 5 people. That is not what I'm saying. But Nino Niederreiter has to be the starting point if they're going for it. If they're not going for it, then it can be a half measure like we've talked about before. But right now, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, if the Jets are thinking about turning over some of the core, I think you think about making a move involving, a piece that either becomes a piece of the core next year or is in the position that, maybe the only way you send a message, to this group as a whole is to trade a core piece like they did when they moved Patrick Laine.
Well, so this is what I was thinking. I had a quick conversation with Johnny Lou while we were leaving, and some of the TSN folk. And what we usually do is after some of the coaches go and players, we'll kind of get together, especially after games like this where we're like, what is going on, and have little conversations. And those are, honestly, I love those conversations because we're kind of just all figuring out, throwing the stuff that we have out there. But I had thought this before, and I actually think there was a chance that this wouldn't happen. But honestly, if someone came and offered something for Pierre-Luc Dubois at this stage, and Kevin Cheveldayoff thought to himself, I don't know that the deal for Pierre-Luc Dubois will ever get any better than that, how could you not trade him? At this stage, like if I were a team that thought to myself, we could use Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I wonder if I could get him. And I wonder if this is a scenario, like I would be making that phone call right now. Because if you were Kevin Cheveldayoff, we've had this conversation. The Jets needed at this point, we talked about it plenty on the show, the Jets, the idea of the trade deadline is not to be drowning and have your GM throw you a lifeline, a trade that is a lifeline. The idea of the trade deadline is to play like you can show your GM that you are a true Stanley Cup contender, and that if you augment or supplement this roster, that that will take you over the top. The Jets are drowning, and I'm not sure if they aren't so far underwater that they couldn't reach the life preserver that was thrown to them at this stage right now. Like, this is disaster. Even if the Jets went out and won 15-0 in their next game about the LA Kings, if I'm the GM of this team, how do I look at them and think to myself, that's enough for me to know that I'm all in on this core? And the problem with being all in on this core is if you go all in and you lose a bunch of your future assets and then everyone decides not to stay after next year, then your rebuild becomes really painful. So you're right, Ken, you alluded to it. And I know Nick Linham is going to hate this, or maybe he's come around. Nick Linham, who from Top Line Media, I think it's Top Line Media, Tim, or Mr. Linham, I guess I should call him. Sorry if I'm butchering that. I know that I am.
Don't call him Mister. He's a young guy.
Hey, when you're this big, they call you Mister. That's how it goes.
Gotcha.
But I take a look at the situation. For the longest time, I had thought to myself, well, then why trade Nathan Smith to create a situation where you get Brian Little off the books and you're able to amass the war chest that the Jets have at this stage? Why go through all this process? Why not sell in the summertime and decide you're going to go forward with this core, if not to give this core everything you have? But I don't know how you can possibly look at this situation right now. The rosiest of Jets fans, and I'll put B.A. Split in there because B.A. Split is always able to find a positive in this. And he's now saying that these Winnipeg Jets are the Colorado Avalanche just waiting to assume their spot at the top of the decision. We've got positivity, ladies and gentlemen. You can't blame people for that. But I don't know how anyone can look at this team and not seriously question to themselves, would you really spend, because this is a possibility, if you decide that you're going all in on this roster and you move a bunch of your future guys and then you lose Pierre-Luc Dubois, you lose Mark Scheifele, you lose Connor Hellebuck, unless you're willing to go for it this year and then tear down next year. And what if you get to the Cup final? You're really going to tear down. If you go down that road, you have to go down it thinking that you're going to succeed, which makes it harder to tear down next year, and that you are going to put yourself in a position where either Mark Scheifele, one of Mark Scheifele, or two of Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck and Pierre-Luc Dubois sign here, and that you can carry that success forward, or you potentially lose all those guys, and then you're in some hard years, and you're in really hard years now because you've moved all your future assets for that. And then what we're looking at, Ken, is dark days. The Buffalo Sabres falling off the map for a number of years. The Chicago Blackhawks, where they find themselves right now. For every New York Rangers team that does a quick rebuild and comes back, there's teams that get lost in the woods for years to come. And I have to think, if I'm a general manager right now, or maybe even more importantly, if I'm Mark Chipman right now, am I ready or willing to mortgage the future and put myself and my team at risk of going and getting lost in those woods for a while for this? I don't know. I don't think that that's an easy answer. I think that you'd be crazy not to be looking at this and saying, can I half measure this? Can I go out and use the space that I have right now to try and get players that are going to be here going forward? And that's what we saw from Nino Niederreiter coming here. And Ken, you and I talked about this before the show. Is Nino Niederreiter a sign that Kevin Cheveldayoff is essentially going to use his cap space to bring in players that are salary dumps for other teams, like he did with Stastny. That's how he got Stastny. He's done this in the past, rather than swing big and go get something and move assets. I say at this stage, I think we've got the answer, and I think this answer has been landed on, because it's hard to have faith in this roster the way that they're playing right now. I think the Jets' moves that they make towards the trade deadline will be ones that fill up the cap space available, but only fill it up from teams that are looking at just shedding salaries and maybe getting a little bit of term, so that the Jets can set themselves up with some players on the roster going forward that they've got team control over for a couple of years before they start the rebuild in the offseason and start moving guys. It is the only thing that makes sense to me at this stage, Ken, because if you were to mortgage your future for what you are seeing right now, that could be a complete and total disaster.
Yeah, a couple things. I'm not on board with that yet. For one particular, one of many reasons. I understand the premise. If the Jets can improve the package by trading the player to a team that would like to get at least 2 playoff runs out of him, I can understand where you're coming from. My issue is that if you're sending him to a contender, which is where he would like to go, unless he's going to Montreal, I mean, what are you getting back that can help the Winnipeg Jets right now? If you're trading him to the, let's say, again, Boston Bruins are not a great example. I don't think they have the room to take him. But if you were trading him to a team right now, not a lot of those teams are going to send you back a roster player that can help you both try to make the playoffs and set you up moving forward. Kirby Dach just got hurt for the Montreal Canadiens. I don't know how serious it is, but if that is a player the Jets are interested in, you're basically like the Buffalo Sabres. Like when the Jets traded Evander Kane, Buffalo didn't care because they were punting already on the season. So I don't know. I understand the premise, and I'm not totally. Again, I have no issue with your premise. I just don't agree with it at this point. But having said that, it makes sense. You got to listen to offers, and if you're another GM and you think the Jets are vulnerable, and that Pierre-Luc Dubois can help get your team over the top, make your best offer right now. But I don't see a lot of teams that are going to be reactionary to the moves that have been being made doing that right now. Imagine this scenario. I thought that the Vegas Golden Knights maybe were still going to try to get, they were still in on Timo Meier right until the time the New Jersey Devils landed him today. If you're Kelly McCrimmon, Sean, if you're Kelly McCrimmon and Mark Stone's out and you have $6 million available to you, are you calling Kevin Cheveldayoff and making an offer for Pierre-Luc Dubois?
I think I've said this since the beginning. I think it's a tough player to play for or to pay for, because you're basically taking on the Jets' problem, right? The Jets are looking at a player who's probably going to walk on them. So, listen, if you thought you were right there and that would put you over the top and you could win with that, I would call up and I would try and make that deal right now. I'm
just trying to think of contenders that have room. Dallas doesn't really have room, I don't think. Vegas would have the room right now.
To find a third party. You'd need to find a third party. You'd need to find a third party and try and move some money.
I think they can afford the money. Barbashev's only 2.25 and Stone is $9 million. So I think they might even have the room. But it would be a problem in the summer. But then maybe they're going to go out and recoup their assets later on, I guess. But I understand the premise. I don't think that I would move Pierre-Luc Dubois first, but I think if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you're certain that he's not willing to re-sign, we obviously know the Jets were interested in Meier, and Meier wasn't interested in signing an extension. That's been reported.
Well, and he hasn't done it with Jersey either. Like Jersey has gone and stepped up that they'll be able to get it done with him. They took the risk that the Jets aren't willing to take. And you know what? It may be the right thing to do. That's a murderer's row you got to get through in the East there. And if you lose him for nothing,
well, they won't lose him. They would still be
year. Exactly. But boy, oh boy, like that's a tricky one for them. I guess you decide that you're going all in for the next couple of years, and they're an exciting team to watch. I don't know, what is it? I know there's my uncle used to say, God hates a coward, right? So a lot of teams are going for it right now. I'm not.
What about Carolina? So we've been like the team that's been under the radar that was initially in the sweepstakes for Meier. They they don't like rentals. Well, what if they'd be willing to offer Pierre-Luc Dubois, 8 times 7 or whatever the number is. I mean, we expect, we've been told, or we expect it's Montreal or bust, but I'm not certain that's the case. And I mean, if it's not the case, the other reason why I say is this. I mean, we know the Boston Bruins are probably going to lose Krejci and Bergeron, who are on lower salaries, and they're probably going to have to pay Pasternak twice his salary. But I mean, if you're the Boston Bruins, would Pierre-Luc Dubois not be a Boston Bruins type of player? But again, can you make the money work? I don't know that, but it's going to be interesting. And I mean, I think that Kevin Cheveldayoff has to listen. I still prefer the other way. I mean, I understand the evidence is right in front of me, but I still think that Kevin Cheveldayoff I don't know what he's thinking, but I think he should be leaning towards, putting together a package for Jacob Chychrun and trying to go for it rather than, be selling right now. But right now you got to listen. I mean, there's no doubt you're going to have to listen, but I'm not willing to say that, based on, I got 5 out of 6. I know it's a long time and it's been a couple months here, but I still think that the offers are probably better in the summertime when more teams could get into the bidding. But if it's only Montreal or bust, then that's not relevant, right? I mean, then the Jets should try to, sell now and try to optimize. But I don't think let's put it this way. I don't think the Jets can move Dubois without getting a top 6 player that's going to help them. And the Perfetti injury complicates matters even more for a team that's already was having trouble scoring. So I think that there's a lot of moving parts. And, I would also say too, I mean, what was the difference today? We're talking about Dubois. I mean, there was no response on Friday night. Pierre-Luc Dubois got into his first fight since 2019 today. He's had 3 NHL fights against Scott Mayfield. So to me, at least, he showed the gumption in a game where the Jets had fallen behind. So that was something we saw plenty of last year. So that was a good sign. But the production level has tapered off. That's a fact. And, the Jets we've been talking about complementary scoring. Here's another night where the Jets stars were nowhere to be found. Right? I mean,
yeah,
they weren't. They were nowhere to be found, except getting chances that maybe were blocked or missed the net. I'm not saying the effort was not there, but I'm saying that for a team that used to score quite freely, they're struggling to put the puck in the net. And again, that's where Nino Niederreiter should help them to a degree, for sure. But this is not a one-player Band-Aid solution. I mean, and that's what Pierre-Luc Dubois said in our post-game deal. I mean, not one player can win the cup, but he's certainly going to help them in their quest to make the playoffs here. And I just think for this team to win a round or more, they need to upgrade the roster. There's no way around it. I mean, I've been saying this for months, and I could not feel more staunch about it. And that's not to say that, I still think the Jets roster has some important pieces, but right now they're lacking cohesion, and that's part of the issue why this team is on the verge of not falling off a cliff. That would be exaggerating, but it's been a bad stretch. 6-10 is a bad stretch.
Terrible.
There's no. If you are, what do we used to hear the Jets talk about? Really good teams don't lose 2 in a row. They've lost 6 they've won 6 of 16. That's not, again, this is not a check the receipts, pat on the back, but this is why we talked about the Jets not being an elite team right now. They were a good team with elite pieces. Right now, they're struggling to be a good team. That's not to say they can't be a good team again, but right now, they're not playing like a really good hockey team. They've been passed in the standings by a number of teams that have been playing much better than they have, and something for them needs to change. I mean, they need to look in the mirror and decide how they want the script to be written. If they want it to be an obit that said these guys collapsed down the stretch, well, then nothing needs to be done. But I think these guys have a lot of pride and don't want to be, have that be on their tombstone, if you will. And one other thing, I mean, we think Rick Bowness' staff are doing a good job, Sean. But this is why when people were getting upset with me, when I had the audacity to say I didn't think it was as simple as it being a coaching issue under either Paul Maurice or Dave Lowry. And the people that ripped me for that, well, how do you think about things are going right now? They look exactly the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing happening with essentially a third head coach. And what's the same? The players are the same. So, like I've been saying from the beginning, I think players and coaches both must assume responsibility. And I'm sure we know that Rick Bowness is beside himself looking for answers. Same with all the coaching staff. They can't believe that this has fallen off the rails the way that it has. Yeah. And they're looking around. They're trying. I mean, I understand people are mad about the blender. Give me a break. Nobody has any cohesion. It's not because they're not playing together. It's because they don't have set lines that are, that are clicking. They've got nothing clicking. So I'll be fascinated to see where Niederreiter fits in. Do you put him beside Pierre-Luc Dubois and have two bulls that go to the net? Or do you give Mark Scheifele a guy that's going to get to the net and go to the dirty areas? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I think you do, yeah. Hey, listen, we're fired up. So we got to start getting to some business.
Oh, yeah,
here.
sure.
First off, you look amazing, my friend. I know why you do. I know where you got that. It's a Frankie special down at Vittorio Rossi on Corridon Avenue. This as well. Put it together. I think it's pretty sharp.
It's one of your best, I gotta say.
I may be dragging it down a little bit. I tried to get the matching headband because I didn't want to blow up Frankie's spot. Maybe I am a little bit, but Frankie gets it. Frankie knows how it works, and he knows how to make people look like $1 million. So if you want to look like $1 million, head on down, see the boys at Vittorio Rossi, Frankie and the boys on Corridon Avenue. They will make you look a lot better than what we saw on the ice here tonight. No doubt about that. Ken, let's get to the lamplighter. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. For me, I mean, the most detrimental goal was the Bo Horvat goal, but the lamplighter was the goal scored by Brock Nelson for a number of reasons. Zach Parise in the neutral zone takes the hit to make the play. Neil Pionk, nice hit, almost sent Parise into the bench, but it created a 2-on-1 rush. And what Brock Nelson did, 2-on-1+1, just like the drills in practice, where there's a chaser. Kyle Connor was the chaser. Brock Nelson put the puck between Kyle Connor's legs, cut to the front of the net, essentially used Kyle Connor almost like a screen, Sean. He kind of blocked him in, and then there's the crisscross, so Brendan Dillon couldn't get across. David Riddick caught going the wrong direction, and Brock Nelson roofs it with the cross-body wrister for the third goal, which was basically a backbreaker for a team that had scored 33 goals in its last 16 games. A 3-0 deficit was far too much to expect the Jets to handle. Like I said, I think the Bo Horvat goal is an absolute whiff by David Riddick, and you could tell by his own reaction. But like we talked about at the intermission, Riddick looked down, was pissed off, banged his stick, and then had a good period, rest of the period. But I think there's two bad goals in this game, and 2 bad goals is too many for a team that's not scoring enough. So to me, it was a tough go for David Riddick, but David Riddick's had a good season. I mean, we get caught by recency bias. Riddick's had a great season in a lot of ways, but the goal against Kent Johnson, against the Columbus Blue Jackets for the game winner, was a bad goal from the boards. Today's goal from Bo Horvat, which was the game winner, is a bad goal, but he got no support in this game and really didn't get much support in the Blue Jackets game. So if people want to hang out David Riddick out to dry, I mean, feel free. Goaltending was part of the problem today. It wasn't the only problem. But the Brock Nelson goal for me is, that's a long-winded way of saying that was the lamplighter of the game, sponsored by the good folks at TransCanada Brewing Company.
I'm going to say this. I wanted to throw this out there. I know because the Jets can't seem to score as of late that the lamplighter has been a little bit hard for the chat room.
It has been.
I'll say this. Feel free, because I know you guys do it with Lou. I know you do it with Vittorio Rossi. You all do a great job of getting creative when it comes to these things. So if you want to let your creativity flow on the lamplighters in the absence of the Jets giving you lamplighters to talk about, feel free to do it, because if you do that, well, you're automatically entered to win an 8-pack of Frosty Delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale from our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to give you your 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston. Ken talked about it last show on April 18th. We are going to be having, March 18th, we'll be having one of our Kenny and Renny parties there. March 25th, another Kenny and Renny party. The first one's in the afternoon, I believe, against the St. Louis Blues. But
LA
don't
Kings.
wait till then. LA Kings. Head on down there. go see go see everybody down at TransCanada Brewing Company. They got lots of great stuff there. I saw they had a video up the other day of all their different beers, and they were pouring a glass of that blueberry. And I think I shorted my computer out by drooling on the keyboard after that happened. So go on, see the people down at TransCanada Brewing Company. Try their pizza, try their beers, all great stuff. Ken, let's get into our Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. I've got one.
I've got one too, and I've already mentioned it, but the best one that I have to offer is, Pierre-Luc Dubois dropping the gloves for his first time with the Jets. We're not here to, always praise fighting, but I think in a game where the Jets had absolutely zero response against the Colorado Avalanche, his willingness to drop the gloves for just the third time in his career and the first time since joining the Jets was enough for me to, be named the We've Got You Covered by the good folks at the Johnston Groups, the OGs.
You know what I'm going to say is the Johnston Group Got You Covered play of the game. I'm going to give it, you were talking about David Riddick. Yes, I know that that was a bad goal. I know that's the second straight game where he's given away a bad goal. I thought it was kind of strange, and Ken, after this, we have to get into the conversations after the game by Rick Bowness. I thought it was a little strange that he, and we'll get into this, basically said that he liked the Jets' start and pointed to that bad goal as kind of what killed their momentum. It felt, I know he wasn't insisting on doing this. I think he was just talking about it as a momentum thing, but it felt a little bit like he was pointing the finger at his goaltender in a situation like that. I have to be honest, I was surprised. It definitely could be construed like that in that situation. I said it to you upstairs. You alluded to it. You and I were talking with Jamie Thomas, and that's a bad goal. But the way that period went, it could have been it probably should have been 2 or 3-1, and it came out 1-0. So he let in a bad goal, but he went and stopped everything else, including some goals that probably should have ended, or some shots that should have ended up at the back of the net. So it's one of these things where we used to talk about Connor Hellebuck. Like every once in a while, Connor Hellebuck would let in a bad goal, and then that was it. He would shut things down after that. Well, I know David Riddick didn't shut things down, but he stopped a breakaway in that game when the score was still 2-0. And I thought to myself, here's a goalie who, at least in this situation, is giving his team a chance to jump back into this game. Now that never happened, but I like where he was with that. I like how David Riddick, if you could take the comments down for just a second there, Ken. I like how David Riddick fought through in that game. He didn't crumble after that goal went in. Now, did he save the game and steal the game the way Connor Hellebuck has done in the past? No, but I don't think for a second that he is the reason the Winnipeg Jets lost this game. And I'll say this, for a backup goaltender to allow a goal like that, a lot of times things go south on the backup goaltender in that situation. He didn't allow that to happen. I thought that he had the Jets covered on this night. I just don't think, it's back to what I'd said before. I go back to that whole situation with the Vancouver Canucks back in the day, and I always take a look at that and think to myself, look, you don't win games 1-0. And so this is one of those nights where things just kept going and piling up and up. The Jets needed to step up and get some run support for their goaltender on this night. It didn't happen. Anyways, that's We've Got You Covered play of the game, brought to you by the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group. You won't find two businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and Teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. And Ken, while we are at it, let's get into Sweet Lou to make sure he gets his shout out here.
You bet, folks. For all your realty needs, please be in touch with Lou Ferlin, whether you're looking to buy, looking to sell, looking for, what that house down the street's worth, maybe looking to move to another neighborhood, or just curious about what's out there on the market. Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty. You can reach him at 204-791-9971 or at the office 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. And his email is www.louferlin.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, and we thank him for his support of this program.
Yeah, love Sweet Lou, as I know all of you do. Okay, let's get into this. I got to say, Ken, I was borderline, I know this is going to sound hyperbolic. I was borderline shocked at the press conference that we had from Rick Bowness after this. So what we all know and have seen from Rick Bowness in his time here with the Winnipeg Jets is a very blunt, very honest coach who's not afraid to confront his players when he doesn't believe that they have given the required effort, the requisite effort in a game. This is a coach that called out his team. So this is what we're used to seeing, him saying we need a response. We'll see what our response is. We'll see what we're made of next game. First, I asked him why we're seeing what we're seeing, and it just felt like he didn't want to get to that answer. And so fine. So then I'd said, well, what did you see from this? And I couldn't be more shocked by the response, Ken. Like I am no NHL coach. I do not have anywhere near the hockey IQ of Rick Bowness. He has forgotten this morning about hockey more than I've ever learned about hockey in my life. So not for a second am I going to try and put my knowledge of the game up anywhere near his. But I can't think that he is being upfront and honest about what he saw in that press conference afterwards. He basically said that he liked what he saw. He liked their start, thought the start got derailed by that first shorthanded goal. Well, if the Jets got derailed and couldn't get back on because of that goal, what does that say about this team's resolve? What does it say about their ability to fight back? What does it say about this not being a fragile team if that's the case? But he doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to use any of those words. What I thought he kept leaning on to try and remain truthful about this situation was, well, this game was better than the last game. I don't know if I buy that. I think that last game they just faced a far more superior team that absolutely lit them up. I take a look at this situation, and what I walk away from this was Rick Bowness's version of the Paul Maurice, I liked our game tonight, when clearly I don't know that there was a lot to like in that game. Here's another thing I want to say about this. Like, everyone who says that the Jets started out slow and worked their way back into that game, it could not have been more clear that the New York Islanders stopped trying to get down and get shots and basically went into a defensive shell halfway through the second period. If you want to know why the shot count starts evening up as the game goes on, it's because they stopped trying to take shots after a while. They just started trying to build off of and play off what the Jets did, pushing the other way. And the Jets, I don't know that there was a lot of danger. I still think that the high danger chances were much more in the New York Islanders' side here tonight. So I just think the only conclusion I can draw from this, Ken, the only conclusion, especially after what we heard from Rick Bowness in the last game and the call out he had for his team, if you call out your team and you don't respond and the team does not respond, if you say, we are going to see what our team is made of, and what you see in the next game is that there was a no-show, especially in the first period, you either have to come out and say, well, we saw what our team was made of tonight, and it's not very much, which puts you in John Tortorella territory, which puts you in, basically Craig Berube territory. And these are coaches that can say this because their team is out of it. Or you basically have to, you have to try and tell people that they're not seeing what they're seeing. That's what I thought we got from Rick Bowness today. A guy who is known for being brutally honest, I don't think was brutally honest. I think he was peddling something that was not correct here tonight. There is not, in my mind, a way to look at that game and think that the Jets deserved a better fate. The Jets, to me, got exactly what they played for in that game. And to see the coach not willing to stand up and say what we saw is what we saw, to me, is a coach that thinks his team right now in this moment is too fragile to hear the truth from their head coach.
Well, I'm not going to dispute that completely. Rick Bowness was honest when he said this. Well, you can't call them out every game, but because if you keep cracking to the whip, they stop listening, right? That's part of the problem. This is what the debate we had last year when we differed on the approach taken by the guy behind the bench. And I love the truth serum. And I'm sure, is Rick saying the same thing in his coach's office? I can't believe that he would be, but I just don't like. At some point, the benefit of attacking people publicly wears thin for players. So to me, that's probably why. But it's just a matter of, like, I think that he needs this group to believe in itself, and beating them down, berating them when they're already down, I don't think is the answer. Now, having said that, I mean, here's the thing for me. Rick Bowness gave his team the day off on Saturday, and you understand why, right? You understand why, because I said the other day after the game, Scotty Billick was up in arms. I'm like, the coach has to believe that his team is too tired, that there would be no benefit to practicing. So that was the case. He gave him the day off. But if your coach gives you the day off, you better be flying out of the gate, not getting outshot 12-1. That was the concerning issue for me. Josh, we asked for leadership, and some people are saying, oh, well, the Jets don't have a captain. Well, hey, Josh Morrissey is a positive person. He's not ignoring the reality. He made it clear they haven't been playing well for a long time. But, going out and saying, things are terrible right now, our team's struggling, we're not going to, figure it out unless we wake up. I mean, berating yourself or your teammates in front of the camera is not going to get you any further. I mean, do we appreciate the honesty? Sure. But right now the team needs to pull together, not be wary of, they also have to be wary of, things fracturing. We saw how things kind of went sideways last year when players started to speak out. This is the test, all right? 22 games. You have a quarter of the season left to define. Well, I mean, the definition will come if they make the playoffs, but it's a quarter of the season to figure out what you are. If you're the Jets, are you a wild card team? Are you a top 3 team? Are you going to miss the playoffs? There are 3 options on the table for the Jets right now. We know they prefer to avoid 2 of them. But what are you going to do? How is your season going to be defined? And, I mean, let's see. And a quick thing about the folks. I mean, we love Craig Berube's honesty, but Craig Berube's team is out of it. It's a way different scenario to say your team lacks passion when you are already out of the playoffs and you've already got a ring on your finger and you've got a banner hanging in your arena. I mean, when a team is trying to find itself and struggling, calling them out, I don't know that. I mean, players may not, feel
Hold on
quite,
a second.
quite as
John Chan, first of all, like I brought it up before, and I'm trying to have fun with this, but essentially, when you're calling us cowards for not doing our job, first of all, you're sitting here listening to 2 guys who just stood in front of Rick Bowness and questioned him about this and pushed him on the idea that he liked what he saw. So let's get a little bit of perspective here. We're all for us being challenged, and we should be challenged in this situation, but listen to the post game afterwards. We stand up, we put our name on our work, and we do it face to face and eye to eye with the coach when we do this. And yes, he was asked multiple times if really he did like what he was seeing out there. He knows what's going on here, okay? It's a tense situation right now between the media and the players. And to sit and lob stones like you're doing right now from a very safe distance and essentially call us out for not doing our jobs when we were just in there doing our jobs and relaying that information to you right now is, I mean, you can do that if you want, but I'm not going to sit back and think that, and not call you out for it. Like what you are doing right now, accusing us of not doing our jobs when we just went face to face there and lobbing stones, you're essentially calling us a coward. What you are doing in this moment right now, I believe, is far more cowardly than what you are accusing us of doing and being derelict of duty in our jobs. I'll say that. Ken, I did want to talk about something here. I wanted to talk about this situation with the ice time thing, because one of the things that Rick Bowness has said in this situation about, like the stick that he holds over these players as ice time, and he said that time and time again. I couldn't help but having this thought. I was chatting with Scotty on text, and I couldn't help but have this thought. I don't know that other than with Nick Ehlers, we've really seen him brandishing that stick in the way that he's cutting back too much in the way of ice time. I know that there are certain situations in big game situations where the 4th line has been out that people think are weird. but there has definitely not been a call out or a benching or any of those kind of things. And I'm starting to wonder if there's potential that the whole idea of players who are not producing or not taking the game as seriously as they should, having their ice time limited or finding themselves sitting on the bench, is now starting to feel like a little bit of an empty threat because it's not happening and this team is not getting the effort that's needed of it.
I mean, two things. I mean, Dubois only played like 13 minutes and change against the Devils. So, I mean, I think that wasn't... Yes, there were some special teams that factored in. I mean, the last game, Wheeler only had 13 minutes and change. So, I mean, that's a substantial difference from the usual 17 to 20 he's been getting. Nikolai Ehlers has been in the 13s a few times. Today, Ehlers was up to 18 minutes and change, which I think is where he needs to be. Interesting game for Ehlers. I mean... Five shots and 9 attempts, so getting a lot of shots, but need some more dangerous opportunities. I mean, I know where you're coming from, but I mean, outside of Ehlers when he was playing 13 minutes, I mean, who deserves to play more? I mean, Lowry's still getting 15 minutes and change. I mean, Stenlund had 11 plus. Morgan Barron, even though he's on the fourth line, he's over 10. I mean, even Janssen Fjallby had 10:49, and I don't think you need to play Janssen Fjallby 14 minutes. I mean, he's a fourth-line player, so he was playing some third-line minutes. So, I mean, is Scheifele at 20 plus? I mean, could you reduce a bit? I don't know. I mean, the Jets are in a tough spot, Sean. Darned if you do, darned if you don't with those skilled players. When you're not scoring, it's like basketball. A good shooter has to shoot his way out of a slump, right? So these guys that are struggling offensively, as long as they're not dogging it, you have to give them opportunities to put themselves in offensive positions. But right now, they're just not getting the job done. And I mean, I don't think that, playing Mark Scheifele 15 minutes is going to tell the third-line player that he is more valued by Rick Bowness than if Mark Scheifele plays 18 to 20 minutes. I mean, the Jets skilled players are going to have to shoot themselves out of this drought. I mean, at the same time, they need to be better defensively. I mean, that's something that's been a struggle. I don't think overall it's not totally going sideways, but their errors have been so glaring. And this is something, Sean, you talked earlier about confidence and Rick Bowness feeling like his team's a bit fragile. I mean, this is like 2019 where the Jets would go through these wide swaths of playing well, but they'd make one mistake, it's in the back of the net, and then all of a sudden they can't get back on track. I know it's totally two different things and two different, substantially different rosters, but that's one quality the Jets haven't been able to shake. Like, one bad goal should not derail this hockey team. They're a good team when they play like it. But like Brendan Dillon said Friday when he said they were humbled, there are nights like they can play with the Stanley Cup champions. They're 2-1 against the Avalanche. But in the stretch where the Avalanche are playing well, they're 0-1 and we're absolutely, taken to the woodshed. So the Jets have got a really tough schedule. So like I said, they can show us what they are and what they're made of, but if they think it's just going to happen automatically, they've got another thing coming. Don't you think?
Yeah, I wanted to have, when I started thinking about this, I wanted to kind of throw out a theory here, because listen, if I'm saying about Rick Bowness not like calling players out the way that, that we, like how I suggested it's an empty threat, I did have this thought, like, with the Jets are in such a precarious spot right now with the trade deadline coming here, because let's just think of this for a second. Let's just say over this last little while, Rick Bowness did get fed up and he said to himself, okay, that's it. We're losing. I'm okay with losing a game or 2 or 3 to get a much needed point across to these players. If he did do that, and I think we've seen from him in the past that he'd be willing to do that. But the timing of this is so tough, because if you are trying to convince, you hear people always have these conversations about like trying to get players to come to Winnipeg. You're trading them well. Are they going to come to Winnipeg? And one of the selling points the fans usually talk about is the player's ability to look and see that the Jets are going to be a winner. Well, if you're heading into the trade deadline and you take a look at this, the Jets, this was their second last game. They've only got one more, Ken. But I can only imagine if you were a player who is sitting back and if you had any kind of trade protection and the Winnipeg Jets tried to trade for you and the GM of the other team came to that player and said, hey, I've got a deal set up for you to go to the Winnipeg Jets. Do you want to go join the Winnipeg Jets? And if that player looked over and saw the Jets in the middle of this free fall and players like Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor or Pierre-Luc Dubois getting benched and all this kind of stuff happening, what's the likelihood that they would be like, sign me up, let's go to Winnipeg? Everything looks like it's going swimmingly there. Like, I wonder if Rick Bowness and his ability to coach right now is affected by the idea that his GM is saying to him, look, you have to keep this thing together as much as possible so I can show a strong front to the players that may be coming here in this situation, or else you've entirely limited yourself to players who are essentially don't have trade protection and have term and are just going to get acquired by the Jets and don't really have a say in the matter. I do think that usually when you're asking questions, the ones that we ask, and a question like this, usually in that situation, the answer isn't always as simple as you think. And there are layers that Kevin Cheveldayoff, that the coach, that the players have to think of that may not even be occurring to us. And that was one thing I had wondered, is it the way that this team is trying to turn things around and get, at least show something. Because we talked about it earlier on. I'm saying, if I'm the general manager of this team, from what they've shown me, am I really going to go invest in this team? Maybe there was a desperation element here in the coach to try and get this turned around, because maybe Rick Bowness knows exactly what this team needs. And maybe he's saying to his general manager, I need you to get this, and I need you to get this, and I need you to get this. And your general manager is saying to you, if you want me to get this, this, and this, it's going to cost this, and this. So you need to show me why I should be parting with all of that in order to get you what you're telling me that you need. And maybe it's just the worst possible timing for this to be happening, and that the big heavy sticks that would be usually that a coach like Rick Bowness would usually be using in a situation like this, he can't break the glass in case of emergency, because you can't be showing that you're in the middle of an emergency right now.
No, totally fair. And I mean, Luke Schenn is a guy we've talked about a lot. I think he could still help the blue line. He's a guy who's won before. He's played a variety of roles, plays a physical game. I think that Rick Bowness and Kevin Cheveldayoff have had candid conversations, Sean. I think that Kevin knows how Rick feels. Whether that, is something.
Sorry, Ken, just 1 second. I'm sorry to cut you off like that. Please pick up where you are. John Chan, things are said in these things. You've been around for a really long time.
Good supporter.
You've always been a great chat member and stuff like that. I don't. The thing is, when it comes to us and how we do our job, sometimes it's easy to point and suggest that people aren't doing their job. Ken and I like to think, Ken likes to think he's a serious journalist. I try and hit that 50% of the time or something like that.
At least 50.
But yeah, we take our job seriously, and we take making sure that we are doing the things that we need to do to provide the information, to garner the information for, the people in the chat room, for the people who watch Sportsnet, for the people who read Sportsnet. We take that very seriously. I don't think that you thought you were saying how I took it, and so maybe it's on me for taking it the way I took it, but everything's clear. Wipe the slate clean. You've always been a phenomenal member of our chat room. I know that you've always been there for our long form stuff as well. No hard feelings, no harm, no foul. Let's move on from it. Thank you for saying that. If you're apologizing for your earlier comments, I apologize for maybe overblowing it. If I did, I apologize for that. Sorry, pick up where you left.
No, it's okay. A little bit of, it's like Friday night's Bronx cheer for Hellebuck. Just a little example of misplaced anger and frustration. We understand fans are frustrated, but I mean, just to kind of dovetail on what Sean was saying, I mean, you're listening, John. I mean, are we saying, yeah, Rick is right, the Jets had a great first period? No, that's not the case. So we're not going to get into a yelling contest with a coach saying, no, Rick, you're wrong. Your team wasn't good enough. So anyways, we appreciate you being here. I think it's from Singapore, and the fact that you're tuning in is excellent, and we appreciate that. And just in terms of where the Jets are going, I mean, it's tough to tell. And here's the last thing that we should talk about. I mean, when it comes to the trade, so the Jets gave up a second in 2024. They haven't dipped into the prospect pool. They still have their first rounders available. That's not to say the Jets will be willing to move those first rounders. But if you want to acquire someone like a Jacob Chikrin or somebody with longer term, the Jets are going to have to give up one of those first rounders no matter what year they're going for it. And again, I I know we don't agree on this part. I just don't see the Jets fan base being ready to embrace a rebuild. If they get to the point where that's the only option, well, then we'll see. But I think they're going to try to retool this here, and I mean augment right now, and then obviously in the summer there's going to be some massive changes coming. But I think that it's way too early just to say, we know what this group is, forget it, punt on the season. The Jets are still, as much as their position has been hurt by this bad stretch, they still have a chance to define their season by picking things up. And, getting Nino Niederreiter for a second rounder in 2024 was a start. And if it ends up being a half measure, well, then we're going to have to judge how the other trades go. But we know that the West started to get a little bit more active today. We know Vegas is still probably on the move. We know Vegas traded for the player that I thought was near the top of the Jets list. Again, they got, would Niederreiter and Barbashev been better than just Niederreiter? Yes, of course. But let's see what happens during the course of this, 5.5, 6 day span. Other teams in the West are making moves. Yevgeny Dodonov going to the Stars. That's not a massive move, but it's a big body, a guy that can give you some complimentary scoring. We know the Blues moved another piece today. Sounds like they're not in the Timo Meier sweepstakes, at least from what we've been hearing. Tanner Jeannot sounding like he could be on the move. He was held out today. Patrick Kane looking like he's going to the Rangers. So lots of things happening. And I cannot believe that, like you said earlier, Sean, after amassing, right now they've got about $4.8 million in cap space. That number could grow to 5.5-ish by accruing during the course of the week. I just can't see them punting and not trying to upgrade the roster further. It's already going to be a complicated off season. We know that, but I don't think that they're going to wave the white flag on this season. I just think that it's not in their DNA, and I think they're going to give this group one last chance to define what they are.
I got to say this about T. Will, who always takes shots at Renny on the chat room. He's texting me all the time, and he agrees with all my takes. In private, Ken, all my takes. And I got to say, I saw Kenny's
just
water
like the
bottle
shirt
earlier on. It's weird. I've got T. Will, and I've got Kenny's water bottle agreeing with me. I thought, what's going on here? It's not that cold that hell's frozen over out there, but it seems to be happening in this situation. Hey, quickly, boo or no boo? You okay with booing the Bronx cheers that ended? They came out a lot tonight at the end of all three periods. Are you okay with boos or no boo? What team are you on?
I didn't like the booing of Hellebuck. If you want to boo if you want to boo the fact that the Jets were no-showed on Friday night and were shut out 4-0 today. I think that's more of an overall general frustration. But again, I can't tell people what to do or how to feel. If that's what they feel. I don't know what they think it accomplishes. If they makes them try harder, I don't think that's the case. But everyone feels frustration. If in the fan base, then they express that frustration in their own way. I think that players, we heard Rick Bowness talk about it a couple weeks ago. He was surprised there wasn't more booing. So I think it'll be interesting. I don't think that it would be something that I would encourage to be a common thing. I don't think it's, do I think it's necessary? No, but that's, not my, I don't think that I am the adjudicator of the booing and, when the booing should happen or occur. But what I do think is that, it was misplaced anger towards Connor Hellebuck. Connor Hellebuck has carried this team and been the backbone for quite a long time. So I don't think that was, they've given him plenty of standing ovations, and I think that was just a small fraction of the fan base voicing some overall frustration towards the scenario and situation. But sorry, that's a long-winded way of being on the fence and saying that I don't think it's for me to say, but I don't see a lot of things. If that makes people feel better about themselves, who am I to say? But I would not be on team boo, I don't think.
Well, I'm going to say this.
But in terms of not liking the effort, I understand it. I understand. What else can people say?
Well, I had a conversation with this on Twitter with Julie Penner, a follower. I don't know if she watches this show, but I know that she follows me on Twitter. And Brent Bellamy, who's writes for the Free Press on architecture issues and is like a brilliant guy to follow if you want to like follow someone who talks about what things you can do, how to build a good city, right? He's always got fascinating ideas. They were both really against it, and their idea was if a crowd is there to give you energy, subtracting that energy is a problem. Or if a team is fragile, which I think the Jets are right now, that booing them is a bad thing. I'll just say this. One thing that I hope always shows through in my takes is that at every single turn, I side with the fans, period. Nothing, Kenny, you and I don't have this job without the fans. These players don't have the lavish lifestyles that they have without the fans. This building doesn't exist without the fans. The fans rule all, and everything that is done by the players, by the journalists, by the team owners should be with the mind of serving the fans as best as they possibly can. Those fans come in here and they pay a good chunk of change to come into this game and be entertained. And when you have people whose jobs it is to perform for them, and those people get paid scads of money to perform and entertain those people, and they do not meet that ideal, I will never turn to a fan and say, what do you think you're doing? Stop booing right now. You paid for that ticket. You are owed something. And when you do not get the return on your investment you feel you deserve, my take is, as long as you are doing it in a manner where you are not harming anyone around you, you reflect that whatever way you want. I have absolutely no problem with the booing. I think in the past, what we saw from Josh Morrissey in that St. Louis Blues game, where he turned to the fans after scoring and got the, are you not entertained kind of response. That's a response to the fans who were showing their displeasure with the team. Like, energy like that, I think, can still spark a team. If you're sick and tired of going in front of your fans and having your fans point out that you are not playing good enough, then there's a simple answer to that. Go play better. Go be good enough. And the Jets have risen to that occasion in the past. I have absolutely no problem. Now, Ken, I would maybe debate when it should be done, and I think you're 100% right. Connor Hellebuck getting booed after all he's done did strike me as weird. I was surprised it happened. But on a night like tonight, the booing that we saw after some of the power plays, after some of the overpassing, people yelling, shoot the puck, and for a team that admitted in the room afterwards that it was maybe overpassing, and booing to end periods, especially that first period like that. Like, the fans gave us a true account of what happened in that first period tonight. We didn't hear that from the coach after the game, but we most definitely heard from the fans a true account of what happened in that first period tonight. I will always, in every situation, side with the fans, because in my mind, even if I'm yelling at them and abusing them like I am in this show, which some people pointed out is the difference between the Kenny and Renny show and some of these other podcasts, is yes, I will berate you on the show. It's just how it goes. But I will always side with the fans, because the Kenny and Renny show doesn't exist. Nothing exists without the fans. They are king. They are the ones to be served. And they were not served what they wanted tonight, and they let them know that they wanted their steak that was cooked well done when they asked for it medium rare. They sent it back to the kitchen tonight. I have absolutely no problem with that. Ken, anything to say before we get out of here?
Should be a fun week ahead.
Should be. Well, I mean, we've got...
It's going to be fun for us. It's going to be fun for you and I.
Stick with Kenny and Renny. We've got trade deadline coverage heading into the Friday. We'll be all over that. Before that, of course, we've got this game coming up against the LA Kings. Did they win tonight? Do we know what happened?
Let's have a look. We might have to, just for a little tease here, maybe we got to be thinking about, might have to have a pop-up show this week, eh? What do you think about that?
Let's do it.
We'll have to see about maybe a Thursday pop-up. We'll have to see how the rest of the week goes here.
I love it. Let's do it. Our fans deserve as much. Once again, the people who watch this show, the people who pay for these seats in this building, the people who invest in the Winnipeg Jets and everything around them and all the stuff that comes around them, they are kings. So let's treat them like kings and queens. They absolutely deserve it. Ken, before we go, I am going to throw out...
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got...
all right. Sorry.
This
Finger
is a close
on the
one.
pulse, buddy.
Ben
Finger
Howard,
on the pulse.
Ben Howard for our home field comment. Ben Howard says, I was agreeing with Renny before agreeing with Renny was cool. Wish the organizations and fans would embrace a rebuild. I just love the idea that at this stage, someone thinks that agreeing with Renny is cool. It's been a long road for me to get here, but I'm glad that we've traveled that road together, Ken, to a point where some people actually think that my takes make sense in this. But I'm going to hand this one out to this is a good one here. So I'm just going to go and say it's time to throw a spotlight on the comments that stand out for the Home Field Dig Deeper Award. And this is the comment that wins it. Let's go to North End Rick, who says, being happy with players who score a lot but don't play the right way is like being okay with your spouse cheating on you because they are super attractive. I love this analogy. I absolutely love it. And that is why North End Rick has our winning home field comment tonight. And just like North End Rick, home field is always going to dig deeper to find the best marketing solution for you and for your company. Find out how at myhomefield.ca. Ken,
Kings lost to the Rangers, by the way. Yeah, Kings lost to the Rangers 5-2, and at the second intermission, the Leafs are up on the Kraken. So, barring a third period rally, the Jets will be in the first wild card spot. But they have teams. They used to be in the rearview mirror. Now they've passed them, and now the Flames are. And the Flames are in the rearview mirror by 5, trailing by 5 points. So
we also know that Seattle has 2 games in hand. So even if they lose here tonight, they're still in a very similar situation. LA,
and they would have them on points percentage. The Jets would be the second wild card, technically. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, that's it. We're going to shut it down. Thank you to the chat room. Thank you, Ken.
You can hit the button.
Absolutely do it. Oh, I'll hit the button, no doubt. Good. I just wanted to say, if you appreciate these conversations, if you appreciate your hosts yelling at you, abusing you, maybe I shouldn't tie
and complimenting you. Don't forget that. Come on,
if you
Sean.
appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep these conversations going in these spaces. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, the TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much to them. Thank you so much to you all. We knew that the chat room and this podcast was going to be on fire tonight. You never, ever failed to bring it. You never let us down. Thank you so much for that, everybody. Thank you, Ken, for feasting tonight. It was the sight to behold. Thank you all. We will
thank you for tap dancing.
Tuesday. We will thank you all. We will see you all on Tuesday, and after that game as the Jets take on I'm not going to call it a must-win, but it's going to be a big game against the LA Kings. Thank you all, everybody. Talk to you later.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.